Hello soulmates, welcome back to So Simple. Here we try to simplify sewing as much as possible. So today we're going to learn how to make an armhole princess dart bustier. So this is my pattern paper and I'm going to be drafting here before transferring to the fabric. Okay, so I'll start by taking my shoulder measurement. The shoulder I'm working with is 14, divided by 2 is 7, so I'm going to mark 7 inches there. And then from the shoulder line again, I'm going to mark my armhole, which is also my chest line. And then from there I'm going to mark my bust point. I'll mark my under bust, and then I'm trying to check what my under bust is, and then I'm going to mark my front half length. So the front half length is 16, while the back half length is 14 and a half. So these measurements that I have marked, I'm going to mark it again somewhere here so that I can have a straight line. So once you mark it, you take your ruler and then make all of them into a straight line. So you can now go ahead and label the lines so that you don't make mistakes. So here is the armhole, the bust point, the under bust, and the waistline. Okay, so for my armhole, to create my armhole line, the same shoulder measurement that I marked, I'm going to mark it on the armhole line again, and then I'm going to come down by 1 inch here for my shoulder slope. Here I'm going to mark a 3 inches tentative neck width and then connect like this. So here again I'm going to connect to form my armhole line. So on this armhole line for the front, you are going to mark and then divide into 2. So I have 7 inches, divided by 2 is 3.5, and then on that point I'm going to come in by half an inch. So here on the armhole line, you're going to mark your bust divided by 4. The bust is 34, divided by 4 is 8.5. So I mark 8.5 inches here. Then you're going to connect these 3 lines together. So with the help of your curved ruler, you just need to place it in such a way that all your 3 points are touching the curve. And then once you have that, you go ahead and create your armhole curve. So the next thing now is to take our dart. So for my dart, I'm going to work with my bust span, which is also the nipple to nipple. So for that, you're going to measure the distance between one nipple to another. For this person, it is 7, divided by 2 is 3.5. So here I'm going to go ahead and mark 3.5 inches. I'll do the same thing here, and then I'll also do the same thing here. So once you mark that, I'm going to make that into a straight line. Okay, and then for my actual dart, depending on the size you're working with, this is a small size, so I'm taking a dart of 2 inches. If the person is of the medium size, you can do 2.5, and it's for a very busty person, you can take a dart of 3 inches. So this determines how deep the cup space is going to be. So here now on the waistline, I'm going to take the dart. So these 2 inches, you can either share it between these two, or you give a little bit here and more here, or you can take all of the dart on this side, which is what I like to do for my armhole princess dart. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and mark the 2 inches dart on this side. I'll do the same thing on the under bust, and then I'm going to make this into a straight line. Then take your curve ruler and then connect this to form your bust curve. So from here now, I'm going to go ahead and create that curve. You can see. So now we're working with an armhole princess dart, so it's going to the armhole. Here I'm going to mark what I have around my armhole, and I'm going to divide that into 2. This is around 8.59 inches. So from here now, I'll come down by 4 inches from the shoulder, and then I'm going to take my curved ruler. Make sure that you find a place where it just curves in perfectly, and then you're going to connect that to your armhole. Okay, so you can see what I have there. So here I'm going to be taking a dart of half an inch on both sides, and then again I'm going to use the curved side of my ruler to connect them together. So this second one, you can see that I am extending it because I'll be replacing the dart I'm taking here back. So you're going to connect this second dart as well, and then the space that you have, remember we took half an inch on both sides, so we are going to have 1 inch. So that 1 inch, I'm going to be taking it here, and then now I'm going to redraw my armhole cuff. This is very important so that when you are joining, they are going to align here. I hope you understand that. So the next thing to do now is to go ahead and mark my circumference measurement. So I already have my bust dart. If you have any dart shortage here, then you're going to replace it back here. So for my waistline, the waist I'm working with is 24, where by 4 is 6. So here I have 3.5. I'm just going to continue my measurements here, and I have 6 inches here. So what I'm going to do now is to take the slightly curved side of my ruler and then connect like this. Okay, so remember that our front waist length is 16, while the back is 14.5. So we have a difference of 1.5 inches. So here I'm going to come to the bust point line and mark that 1.5 inches difference here, so that the sign or side of the front and back is going to align. Then I'm going to take the darts there. So that is all the darts I'm going to be taking here, and I will simply shade out the darts so that you can tell the difference that we are going to have there. So now you can work on your neckline. You can use any neckline of your choice, but for the style that I'm going for, the neckline is like a square neckline. So I'm trying to avoid gaping as much as possible. So to eliminate that, I'm going to first create the natural neckline that I normally work with, which is 3 inches by 3 inches like this. And once I have that, I'm going to get the midpoint of this natural neckline. Okay, so this is the midpoint here. I'm going to mark that, and then I'm going to take my ruler and then connect that from that midpoint to my neck, to my bust point here. Okay, so once you connect that, the next thing now is to tighten this part. So to do that, I'm going to mark 1 cm to 1.5 cm. The other side of your ruler is the centimeter. Okay, so I'm trying to get it to the nearest point. That is why I'm doing that, just a little bit, and then I'm going to mark that towards the neckline like this. Okay, so for me to be able to easily close this dart now, I'm going to open up my bust dart. Okay, I'm going to open up my bust dart, and then I'm going to be folding this, so you can mark it out so that you will know the line that you're closing. Okay, so another thing you can do is to slash one side open, and then you just close it up. So once you slash it like this, you're going to close it up like this. Okay, and then you can now use your tape to hold that part down. So after doing this now, you can go ahead and mark your actual neckline, the neckline that you are working with. So for this, like I said, the neckline is like a square neckline. So I have 3 inches here. I want it a bit wider than that. So I'm going to extend my 3 inches by half an inch or 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to be marking 3, 3.5. Okay, so that by the time I'm going to mark it 3.75. Okay, and then for the depth of the neckline, I'm going to mark um 5.5 inches for the depth. I'll mark 5.5 inches. So here again, I'm going to mark the same thing that I have here, 3.5. Okay, I had 3.75, so I'll just mark 3.5 inches here, so that's not going to be too wide, and then remain, I will mark the 5.5 again. You don't have to work with this neckline. You can use any neckline design that you want, but this is what I'm going to be working with for mine. You can see that it's like a square neckline. So now I can go ahead and cut out this neckline. So just make sure that you remember the neck measurement that you use for the front, so that you can use the same width for the back as well. So here now, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my pattern, then I'll close my bust dart. So this is the center front. I'm going to close my bust dart now and then add my seam allowance on the pattern. You can also do this on your fabric if that is what you prefer. So now the bust dart is closed. I'm going to be working with 1.5 inches seam allowance. So I'm going to mark that here and also on my waistline. And again, you're going to take your ruler and then use that to connect them together. Yeah. Then I'm going to extend my bust line. So that is all I need to do. The next thing is to go ahead and cut the remaining part of your pattern. So remember that this is your new armhole line. So that is what I am cutting. And then you're going to cut the side as well. So now last thing to do is to take out these darts. So please make sure that you don't have any sharp points while doing this. Just carefully take out your dart and then you have your front pattern. So this is what the front pattern looks like now. And see, this is what we're going to have by the time we're done. The back, you can see, is just a regular back body. This is my shoulder line. You come down by 1 inch just like we did for the front. This is my armhole. You measure your bust and your waist measurements, and I took a dart of 1 inch. So this is my zipper allowance for installing my zipper. So just like we did for the front, you're going to mark new your new shoulder measurement. You're going to mark it and then you mark whatever neck depth that you want to work with, or you can just work with any design of your choice for the back. So this is what I'm going to be working with for mine. I'm going to connect like this and then I'll connect it into my zipper allowance. So this pattern that I drafted already have the allowance there. I added 1.5 inch seam allowance just like I did for the front. So this is the initial measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out now. So you can cut this on your fabric. You just need to add allowance to your dart areas. Okay, I hope this is simple enough. I hope you're able to learn one or two things from this. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. And also, if you are going to be adding this to a skirt, okay, to further eliminate whatever zipper bulge that you may have on the center here, okay, let me just put that in. So if you are adding this part to your skirt, so to further eliminate zipper bulge, so here at the center on the waistline area, for a small size like this, you can come up by 1/2 inch. For a bigger size, you can do 0.75, and then you're going to mark that. You can see I marked the 1/2 inch in the zipper allowance, and then from where my zipper allowance stops, I'm going to slant it to the side like this. So with this and your dart, you're not going to have any zipper bulge. So what you need to do now is to take this part off, and then you can now go ahead and cut this on your fabric.